Good evening. Welcome to Community Friends. This show is produced by the Bully Busters, Debbie and Lori. Welcome. Welcome to springtime. A lot happening at the Bully Busters down at the Salvation Army and at United Congregational Church. Check us out on Facebook. Next week is spring break, and we will be open during the day for you kids that have no other thing else to do. It will be open from 10 to 4 daily at the Salvation Army. Come check out our youth center down there. You just got to bring your own lunch. We'll have some snacks and refreshments, but from 10 to 4 daily, we'll be open. We have different activities and programs going on, so just come check us out down at the Bully Busters. The cost of it is coming in with a good attitude and leaving with a good attitude. For more information about that, just check us out on Facebook. So with me tonight, we're bringing back Karen Neely from Celebrating Norwich. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
And she's here to talk about, the City of Norwich has been working on their Plan of Conservation and Development. And with us tonight is Jason Vincent from Plan Metrics.
Thanks, Debbie.
And talking about a little bit, what is this plan for and what's it supposed to do?
Yeah, cities are required to have plans of conservation development under state law, and it's required to be done every 10 years. So Norwich is in the process of updating its last plan of conservation and development. POCD is the acronym that's often used, so I may utilize that term later on.
Okay. And this is, you take over where you want. This is to help Norwich for those folks? Because, I don't know, for me, I hear another study, I hear another review, and I'm like, okay, is this really going to?
Well, and let's back up for a minute. Let's back up for a minute, because for years I said to people, well, Norwich needs a plan. Norwich needs a plan. And I had some council members over time saying to me, we have a plan, we have a plan, we have the POCD. And I'm like, POCD, what is that? And, I think for me, someone who's lived here for almost 14 years, but was born and raised here and grew up here, I never knew what the Plan of Conservation and Development is. Never. And my dad doesn't even know what it is. So I don't think it's something that the average person has knowledge of. Is that common?
Yeah, we find that in communities all over the state. My title probably showed up. I work with Plan Metrics. I'm a planning consultant. I do this for a living. We are brought in by the city to help them. But yeah, communities all over the state, when we talk to people that live there, they're not aware of some of the plans and vision and ideas that communities have. And Norwich has had plans. I mean, if you think of Howard Brown Park, that used to be a parking lot, and at some point in time it became a park. That didn't just happen. Somebody planned for that. Somebody had the vision, and there was leadership, and they were able to convince others to get behind that idea and do something about it. And that's what planning's about. And the way I always tell the story about planning is, think about when you get in the car and you're going to go for a ride. You quickly look at the gas gauge to make a determination how much gas you have. That's an inventory. Then you assess the situation. That's the second step in planning. There's an inventory, then there's an assessment. You determine, do I have enough gas to get where I'm going? Then you develop a strategy, the third step in planning. Do I get gas or do I just kind of chance it? And some people like to play gas roulette, myself included. But that's planning. And we do that by ourselves all the time without even thinking about it. It's intuitive. Like, you just do it without thinking about it. But for a community, just take 40,000 people and ask them if they should get gas. Not everybody would agree. They'd be like, well, no, I like to wait till last minute. No, I get it immediately because I don't want to run out. Those are the types of things. I'm taking gas as an absurd example, but just take that with land use, like where new housing should go or where new parks should be located. Everybody's going to have different opinions on that. And what a plan's about is to try to find where the majority of those opinions lie and then try to point the city in that direction. And hopefully, if a good plan that's implemented makes meaningful change in the future.
So you're saying we already have a current plan, but now we're looking to update it?
Yeah, you have a plan right now that, I believe is a good plan, is a good basis. And when I've talked to people around the city, people that are in leadership roles, they've been aware of it. Now, did it all get implemented? That's been one of the challenges. And what your criticism was, Debbie, and I hear this all the time, is that, we hate another study, we hate another plan. We want to see things happen. But a plan in and of itself will not get implemented. It requires leadership, and it requires money quite often.
Yeah, I was going to say, with this economy, I'm sure that had an impact on a lot of what happens, too.
But from what I understand, the Plan of Conservation and Development is not like it's not another study. Okay. See, the way I understand it is this is sort of a standing plan that we've had for
10 years, yeah.
But
it went back longer than that.
Back longer than that.
Okay.
And so, from what I understand, this is the plan that really sets, that sort of maps things out, right?
Yeah.
And studies are only brief snapshots of people's recommendations that could feed into a plan like this, right?
Exactly. The plan's meant to be a bigger horizon, a bigger picture. And then you're going to need to study certain situations. You know, at one point in time, we had a plan to change circulation in downtown, right? So somebody studied that. That was not part of the plan of conservation development, but the POCD might have recommended fixing circulation. It might have said something like that. So when it came time to thinking about it, we studied it. Now, one of the things we heard, you know, getting ahead to a question you're going to ask me, one of the things we heard was circulation in downtown's broken, we need to fix it. So this plan will lay that, I believe, I can't speak for the decision makers, but if I have any influence in the process, I'm going to try to convince them that circulation is something that we address as a community. You know, that maybe circulation in downtown is not appropriate, and we need to study and come up with a better solution.
And something that would not cost a lot of money to do either. It would cost some, but not.
Well, you know, part of doing the study is to convince other people that it's a good idea, not just people in the city, but people like the Department of Transportation. We may need them as partners to help fix the transportation system. So if we just say it's broken, fix it, we may not get a solution that we like. We may get something that somebody else thinks is a good idea. The study gives us a chance to test whether the public thinks it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, and going back to those studies, not to get too far off on a tangent, but I recently started working on a project as a volunteer for the city, because people have been talking for a long time about, oh, another study, just what you said. So I stepped up and have been volunteering my time to go and collect all of those studies that were done by various consulting groups over the past, say, 30 years, and find copies of them and put them all together. Believe it or not, and I don't want this to sound like a negative thing, but they're not all together in one place. But that's not unusual if you think about, you know, turnover in a city clerk's office, if you think about different city managers having different ways of doing things, and there not being a consistent way to catalog things, it's not unusual.
It just computers being updated.
Right, and they end up in, you know, whoever's office was responsible for contracting the consultant, they have a copy, they use it there. So what I'm doing, though, is putting those all together and identifying the common threads that consultants over time have said are things that we need to address.
I call it a planning library, and most communities don't have that for a number of reasons. Planning happens all over the city. It's not just happening through the Commission on the City Plan. The Waterfront Group has a plan. The Public Utility Group has a plan. So, you know, planning happens at a lot of different levels. Even neighborhoods have plans. You know, the strategic plan for Greenville. But, you know, what we try to do is see what elements need the city's assistance and bring that all up to that level.
So I think once I have this planning library, that'll be good as a reference tool, so we can at least say, you know, then we can continue to maintain it in the city. But anyways, speaking of libraries and copies of plans, so, you know, if somebody wants a copy of the Plan of Conservation and Development, where can they get a copy?
It's online on a PDF format on the city's website.
The current
the current plan.
It's
if you go to the planning department, you'll see that it's the document page at the very bottom, and the city plan is right there.
And I'm sure if people didn't have the internet, they could maybe go to the city clerk's office, or they could go to the planning department maybe and call them.
It should be on file in the clerk's office. You know, it's been around for 10 years, so the clerks might not be aware of where it's located immediately, just because, you know, if you went to the clerk's office and asked them to see the city plan, you're probably the first person to do that.
Well, so it's
just not common for.
So it's updated every 10 years. So when you're doing these plans, the mindset is going to take 10 years for some of this stuff to happen or take place, or
you know, we're on a time horizon that could be longer than 10 years for some of these ideas. You know, think about if you traveled around, you see these bike trails that are everywhere. That's not a new idea. There were bike trails out in the Cape back when I was in grade school. It just took a long time for that idea to migrate to other places in the country.
Well, the Q Bridge comes to mind. You know, how long they've been planning that, and they think that's still another 10 years before it's actually finished.
You mean the revitalization of that, or
the bridge in New Haven, the Q Bridge?
So, you know, what we're trying to do is think about things that are low-hanging fruit that the city could immediately do that fit in with our vision as a community. But there may be some things that we might not get around to for 10 or 20 years. That doesn't make the plan a bad document.
Yeah.
To me, the plan is most useful when it's part of the public dialogue, when people are talking about the plan. And one community we worked in, I get these Google posts where anytime the word POCD, yeah, I'm a nerd, I get it, I'm sorry, but anytime the word POCD shows up for that community, it comes into my email box. And they're talking about it almost every day. They're talking about their plan. It's part of the local vernacular that they've created this culture of planning. And that's to me is when a plan reaches its highest value, because it's being debated publicly. It doesn't mean that the plan's perfect, because nothing's perfect.
Yeah. So the public input is important to you?
Oh, public input's critical. Okay. Because what we're trying to do, when I mentioned the inventory assessment strategy in that gas analogy, the more people that are involved in a process, the better idea we get of the varying opinions that are out there. And we might be able to just shift a little bit to make a lot more people happy.
Well, what's interesting is, oftentimes you see in Norwich how people will say, you'll hear grumbling, you'll hear complaining, you'll hear the naysayers, but then you offer them an opportunity to attend a meeting like the meetings that I've already attended, which we've got listed here to talk about, or to come to a future meeting. And this is very important. I can't stress this enough, that if you want your ideas heard, if you want your input heard, if you want to see what's going to happen in your neighborhood or neighborhoods across the city, then you need to be aware of when these meetings are scheduled. There's various means by which you can become aware, and we're going to talk about the meetings coming up or what we've had so far, but there are so many methods by which the information gets put out. It gets put on the city calendar on the website.
Yes, the Norwich Bulletin and Day have written a number of articles.
Right, the Norwich Bulletin and the Day publicize it. You've got the Norwich City Plan has a Facebook page.
Yes.
So there's no shortage of ways by which people can get informed. I think if you contact Keith Ripley himself, he'll let you know when there's meetings as well, because he's so passionate about it.
I think Keith's probably made more personal phone calls and given more personal invites as part of this process.
Right.
And sometimes that's what it takes to engage people that, in the past they've gone to meetings and their idea wasn't readily accepted and they went home and maybe they pouted about it. That's part of the process is you may not have an idea that people like. You have to come to terms with that and realize that your opinion may not always be what the community is ready for. I'll give you an example of that. We were working with one town where the coastal community, and we talked about sea level rise. And they said, we don't want to hear anything about sea level rise. We don't think it's an issue. They finally put it in their plan as an emerging issue, something that was a very soft wording. Well, this latest hurricane came through and wiped out half their shoreline, and now they're doing a coastal resiliency plan to deal with sea level rise. So, just because, but if you went to those meetings and you were a champion for sea level rise, you would have left frustrated. You would have said, what are these people thinking? Right. Well, the reality is not every idea is ready for prime time. For a long time, the world was flat, and it became round. So it took a long time for people to accept that idea.
And I understand, because even like with the storms that we had there, at least NPU was planning ahead. They didn't cut their line guys that were trimming the trees. They didn't cut with CLMP, which we saw the impact of them cutting those guys and not doing it every 5 years instead of every 2 years. We saw the impact. So and I get it.
And there's a great example of implementation. There's an agency in the city that does a lot of planning. And when you go around and look at an inventory of planning documents, you'll see NPU does a lot of planning, and they implement.
Yeah.
So, their plans are not sitting on a shelf. And
we lived it this past year. So folks who think that planning, for the folks listening out there, but planning does not help, we felt the impact with NPU loud and clear. Yeah. We still do, so that's a perfect example there.
Water quality in the streams. The fact that, I read a couple articles about fishing this past weekend in Norwich, and, 40, 50 years ago, the Shetucket River was not a clean river. You might catch fish, but you probably shouldn't eat them.
Right.
But there have been plans in place to fix that, and the city's been an active partner in doing that. So,
and like I said, the Celebrating Norwich Facebook page has been great, because I was just telling Lori, my co-host, about Bill Kenny just posted about the Shetucket River, that walkway you can walk, and we're going to go check that out this week.
Right, and they're doing a cleanup, right? Yes. Is that where the cleanup's going to be on April 22nd, right?
Yes, 9 to 3 o'clock.
The Bully Buster kids will be down there, but we just found out about that. So, Lori, that's another place where we can go, and it just. So once again, I thank Karen and all those folks that are doing that Celebrating Norwich, because we're finding out just hidden, simple treasures that we have here in Norwich.
And so as part of the planning process, one of the things that we identified was through talking to Greenville NRZ that they wanted to get more access to the river. You know, how do we get more public access? How do we encourage fishing? And one of the tools out there is called the Greenway. And a Greenway program in Connecticut's part marketing, part potential grants. And one of the things that we suggested is why doesn't the city partner with Preston and Lisbon to create the Shetucket River Greenway? Sprague,
okay.
yeah, and Sprague, Wyndham, Scotland, and Franklin have already gotten their portion designated back in 2011. So maybe we can get that designation extended down to the Norwich Harbor, and in doing so, open up a potential conduit for grant fundings.
Right.
And they're small grants, but we might be able to use them to do cleanups or put up signs or create better fishing access. So,
And I have to say, you know, this discussion about using our waterways, a couple months ago at a One City Forum, the mayor actually brought a map of the harbor area and of the riverways, and he drew a line around, in theory, where we could have all the connections made to do this. So he's been thinking about this for a while, and this is the kind of information that doesn't get out to the public, is that he's having this thought. Then we had these meetings, these wonderful...
Well, he is getting it out to the public, just not enough folks are going and
Right.
taking
No,
advantage
but
of
what I'm
these One
saying is
City
that
forums.
these aren't the things that make the newspapers.
Yeah, true.
Is the stuff that he's talking about, that people are saying, what are we planning to do? So he's been talking about that. Then we've got the meetings that I've attended for the all three POCD meetings that you've had. One at the Senior Center, one at in Greenville,
Yes,
right?
yep,
And then
on the
one
west
on the
side.
west side. And I have to say that the Greenville meeting was very dynamic. People were
True.
very committed to utilizing the waterways in a better way. So there's the connection where we start to connect Greenville to the downtown, to the other side of the downtown, going up the Yannick River. Now we're starting to talk about connecting the city, and that's what's really important.
And connecting places, because Norwich is not just one place. It has all these small neighborhoods, and some, you know, they're different sizes, but most of them are small. And how do we connect those places and create a better sense of place in doing so? And trails and these greenway concepts are one of those ways to do it. They may not.
That's wonderful.
They may not have an immediate economic effect, but to be able to walk out your door and be able to walk downtown and not have to, you know, dodge traffic. You can do that along the Yantic River right now. There is a Yantic River Trail. What if there were one that went up to Greenville somehow? You know, what if those types of systems existed? What if there were a way to get from Greenville to Mohegan Park under that same kind of system?
Bike? What if people can bike? What if they can take their baby strollers and take their child out for a long walk?
And you know, people might say, "Wow, these ideas are crazy." Yes, they are a little crazy, but they're grounded on facts that these things have been done in other places. It's not like Norwich is trying to invent a new random idea.
Right, that's the good
that,
thing about it.
These are things that other communities have done that have been valuable to those communities, that have brought guests and visitors there. And they've been meaningful for the people that live in their community. So why can't we try to find a way to put some of that in our community? And then, how do we pay for it? We have to build partnerships. And part of that is through the marketing with the Greenway program. There's a number of other agencies that are out there that are potential partners that we need to work with. And
we got to be willing to invest in ourselves.
But we'll never get partners to buy into our vision if we never tell them what it is. You know?
That's
So-
exactly what it is. We have to start getting it out. We have to start sharing it.
And this plan becomes sort of that a marketing document from that perspective. You know, so you can take it, Karen, and go somewhere and say, look, here's something that we're looking to do. How can we do it?
Right.
So Karen and Jason, you've done 3 of these so far. So what have you learned? This question's for the 2 of you. What have you learned so far from the folks that are going there? Or
Yeah, not surprisingly, the biggest topic that comes up is business development. So, you know, how can we help small businesses? Because that's going to be the fabric of knowledge. You know, let's concentrate on base hit development, not the home runs. Let's look at the mom and pops that are here. Greenville, one of the things we learned is there's a lot of mom and pop type businesses there. And how can we get the local community to support those businesses more? How do we strengthen that local business economy? And I think that's probably one of the first things that came up. The traffic, especially in downtown, more circulation than traffic. You know, how can we make downtown, how can we make that work better? Because people think that it doesn't work very well. I guess those would be probably my 2 top
And I
things.
think there were things that people identified. It was interesting to watch this process when you go in with the big maps that they lay out.
Yeah.
And you put green dots for the successes, the things that you like, and orange dots for the things that you think are not successes or failure. What do you call them?
We call them sorries, prouds and sorries.
Prouds
yeah.
and sorries. So it's interesting because sometimes the prouds at the same time are the sorries as well, which is really kind of interesting.
Yeah, I noticed
you know,
that.
one of the examples that stands out in my mind is people were proud of the harbor, but they were sorry about the scrapyard that was located on the edge of it. So we're proud, like we've got these, it seems like we've got these prouds in Norwich sometimes that are 75% great, and we just need another 25%, and it's just that 25% or the 10% improvement that would make it like a complete home run. You know,
the Structed Rivers, all the waterways had prouds and sorries components for those same reasons. Like we wish we had more public access, or maybe there's some land uses that are there, like Shippen Street, that we wish something would happen with it. We want to make sure that any impediments that prevent development are removed for those sites. And how do we make those sites as attractive as possible to the private sector? Because part of this plan is going to be implemented by development community. Those are going to be big implementers.
And I think one of the misconceptions for some folks, they don't realize a lot of these properties are owned by people. They're not owned by the city, so your hands are tied sometimes. You know, you could hope they're going to do something in Shippers, but unless it's owned by you guys, you don't have a lot of control.
And you know, we have this industrial legacy that is really challenging to overcome, but we've done a really good job working on it. Think about Yantic Falls and the historic mills that have been converted to housing. Thermos on Thames, all the older schools the city has
all
been converted to housing. So
you
know, the city has this great legacy of what planners call adaptive reuse, where we take a building that wasn't designed for a particular purpose and we repurpose it. And the city's done that well. But there are still, you know, the Panema Mill is not done, but it's a huge undertaking. When we think about the other mills, may have been a little bit easier than that site.
So we hit the low-hanging fruit.
You
in
did,
essence,
and
we did.
You did it well, and so right now, when Panema finally got through the process, the market fell out on it, and so we may have to be a little bit patient, and hopefully the mill can survive this necessary patience.
So they're telling me we have a little under 10 minutes, so I want to get back on track on the process. So you've had the 3 meetings. What are the next meetings?
Well, this Thursday immediately we're going to be meeting with your group and the students over at the Congregational Church at 3 o'clock to talk about the Prouds and Sorries exercise and find out from them what they're interested in. Then at that point we go into strategy development with the task force. There's an update committee that's been assigned, and we meet with them to talk through what we've learned and what types of strategies we might want to contemplate. After that's completed, we'll go back to the public to test those ideas to see what they think.
So how long do you think it'll be before more public meetings are scheduled?
We're probably about 2 or 3 months right now before we have additional public meetings.
So right in the summer, probably, right in the summertime?
Well, we'll probably end up pushing it to like September. We hate to...
Summertime's tough, I know.
and it just, sometimes a process like this or a project like this falls into ebbs and flows, and you have to go into a little bit of a pause. Especially to get the best public comments. Like if we don't want to have a meeting in August, that's not a good time for public participation. So September is probably a realistic time that we'll go and test some of the ideas and see what people think.
And I appreciate that, because this, like he said, this coming Thursday for you youth out there, you have a chance to come down to United Congregational Church about 3 o'clock to talk to these folks about what's important in your city, what do you like to see and what you don't like. You know, how often you don't get that chance, and this is something I had pushed and encouraged, because you guys in the next 10 years, you're the ones at the table, so they need your input. So come on down, let's, give them your input of what you like, what you don't like, and what you would like to see, and may be part of the process. And, and that's my goal, to hopefully get these young people involved and continue and keep them involved, and, attending meetings and being involved in the process.
Yeah, getting them engaged, when you get engaged as a youth, your civic engagement level will go up as an adult. I believe that. I was engaged as a younger person, so, going into public policy wasn't a huge leap for me personally.
Well, and what I think will be interesting about it, to have the kids involved, is that they may say things, they may see things and say things that we don't even see. I think I'm excited because Deb's invited me to come along. I'm actually available to come that day. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to observe what the kids are saying about what they're proud of and what they're sorry about in Norwich, because they are the future of what's going to happen to this community. I was saying to Deb, beyond her and I, and a lot of other people, it'll be interesting to see what they want and what they what they envision.
Well, even when I did the exercise, I was surprised at how many things I liked, and you forgot some things. 'Cause I was watching my other friend; she pokes the dog park and that part. Oh yeah, I like that too. So you ran out of stickers.
Right.
You ran out of stickers after a bit. I was like, wait a minute.
But the whole point of that exercise is to get to hear from you the things that you love about and the things that you're concerned about in your community, because you observe these things every day. And planning is not rocket engineering. We're relying on observations and trying to come up with strategies that are going to be meaningful and hope we hit it right. And as a professional planner, I can tell you that planners haven't always been right. So what we try to do is find out from the community, and this is where it becomes better, is that if the community is engaged and they're part of the process, we're not relying on somebody totally giving them their professional opinion.
So if someone had some questions or issues or participate, who can they contact?
Yeah, Peter Davis is a city planner, and he's the key person to contact, and he'll take the time to talk with you about the plan, and if he has any comments that he needs to forward to me, he'll do it that way. It works better that way because then the process remains public. I'm a private consultant, and it's probably better that it goes through that.
Yeah,
that channel.
that is the best thing to do.
And Peter's been here for a good period of time, so he knows the city pretty well.
And for those that are watching right now, is it too late for any of those, because you said the next meetings won't be until September, is it too late for them to put their input?
I don't think it's ever too late for public participation. They may not be able to participate in the assessment piece, but we're going to have strategies that we're going to need people to talk to us about. And I think that when we roll out those strategies, it's very important that they come out and tell us, yeah, I think that's a good idea, or maybe you need to think about this too, because quite frankly, when you get to that level in the process, sometimes people might come up with some ideas that would never have come out earlier.
True.
So,
and some strategies.
yeah, once they see the strategy, like, well, have you ever thought about this particular issue? They start thinking about it in a little bit more detail than they ever thought about before.
Yeah, and I can't encourage people enough to, if, I see a lot of people, I monitor the newspapers, I see people make comments on different articles that are posted, pages and pages of ideas that people have about things that they'd like to see the city do. I can't encourage people enough to take those ideas that they're putting in the blogs, because those blogs aren't monitored. There's no information pulled from them to feed into any of this stuff. If you have time to type it there, you've got time to type it somewhere else. Put your ideas down on a piece of paper. Put it in an envelope. Send it to Peter Davis in the planning department. He'll be very receptive to receiving any ideas. I'm sure he'll feed them over to Jason.
Here's an example of the work that you've done with that. I don't monitor the blog, the Knowledge Bulletin blog as religiously, but I did see a water trail comment posted. Somebody was talking about a water trail. And
I'm sorry, they tell me we got to wrap up.
Sorry.
So our guest will be on. I know Karen will be back on next one for Celebrating Norwich. This went too quickly, so go out and be a good community friend, but come down and check out what we're doing here in Norwich. Celebrating Norwich is a great thing to do. Thank you.